it was the biggest blessing that could have possibly happened to us. No other company on the planet can come even close to that. This year, we set a global record of taking a client that had never heard of us to a completely planned trip in 47 minutes. And I'm so proud of my team, and I'm so grateful to have just an amazing team behind me to make this all possible.
Folks, welcome back to Stellar Minds, the show where we dive deep into the real stories behind today's most driven entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Thomas Scott, and today I have an amazing guest in a very unique niche industry. We're talking luxury travel, folks. This guy brings your wildest dreams to life, makes it a reality in terms of travel. I have Shane Mahoney, 14-year veteran in the travel space. His business has been mentioned across a plethora of major publications, including Forbes, Business Insider, and Travel and Leisure. Shane, excuse me. Geez, I'm already messing up here. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you because as we were speaking prior to getting this thing going, I have a lot of ambition with traveling. I think a lot of people, right, want to experience life and travel, see different cultures and places. But it seems like, most people, they're fine staying in their little neck of the woods. But hopefully, for those listening, we might be able to inspire them a little bit to want to see different parts of the world, get exposed to different cultures and food and things of that nature. And so I'm really excited to talk to you. You have a really unique story about how you got into travel. So, as
Mhm.
always, I want to bring us all the way back, Shane. We want to talk about what were you doing before the travel business? What inspired you to get into travel?
Thomas, I love it. Thanks. It's funny. You reminded me of a quote I love by St. Augustine, and it said, "Life is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page." And I
Mm,
thought that was a really cool way to look at it because as you travel, you're exposed to more cultures and more ideas, and ultimately, what I've loved about travel myself, and this is different for everybody, is how we as humans solve common problems, right? How do we do things? How do we go through these steps? And every culture has kind of these different ways of doing it. And for me, I've had some of the biggest unlocks in my life
mm.
by just seeing somebody else doing something that I've been doing a certain way different. It's not magic. So anyway, yeah. So my story, I don't know that it's necessarily unique. I spent 12 years in sales and finance jobs. I turned out I was good at making money. And at the end of the day, I was 34 years old. And I didn't like it anymore. It wasn't fun to constantly be on this grind for no particular passion or love, right? And so quite honestly, I was ready to check out of all of it. And
Right.
so I was about 3 weeks away from literally selling everything I had, and moving to France with no job and
Mm.
deciding that I was going to be a ski instructor. I was like, I had never, ever asked myself, what do I really want to do with my life?
Mm.
I did what I think a lot of people do.
I was going to
I got
say,
out of
I don't think a
college.
lot of people ask that question. They just
I
get
got
in
out
the
of
rut.
college. I sent out a bunch of resumes. A company gave me a great job, and that turned into, several other great jobs. And, what I mean, great in the sense that, they paid well and stuff like that. But it was soul sucking, right? And
Right.
and so I did. I went right back to first principles, and I was like, what do I even want to do? And what I like about this is that when you haven't been asking these sorts of questions, you're probably going to be pretty bad about answering them.
Mm.
So I got really, really lucky. And what ended up happening was right at the 3 week mark, my mom saw an article in a magazine about a guy who had a 20-year real estate agency in Colorado, sold everything, moved to France, and started a ski school. And I thought, man, I'm living exactly where this guy had to have been. And I thought I would be the worst salesperson on the planet if I couldn't get a job with this guy. So I wrote him a really long email. And I was just like, look, I'm in exactly the same spot in my life that you had to have been. Hire me because I'm coming out. And he was extraordinarily generous. We got on the phone quite literally the very next day for 4 hours, and very generous that he gave his time to a stranger like that.
Wow.
And I will save all your viewers. The TLDR is he goes, you should not be a ski instructor. He goes, but he goes, I've been talking to you for a while. He's like, I think you should be a tour operator. And you know what? I've been around the world about 4.5 times. I'd grown up traveling. I never really thought of it as a career because, let's be honest, if I'm going to be in a cubicle making a lot of money, I certainly don't want to go to a cubicle to sell cruises. Not my fan, not a fan. So I didn't want to be a travel agent. And I think that's what most people know, right? And so I like definitions, Thomas. So I'm going to define this for everybody. A
Please. I was going to
travel
ask you,
agent,
what's the difference
what's
between
the
a
difference,
touring
right?
guy and a travel agent?
So tour operators are the companies that actually build everything you see, touch, taste, do everything. We operate at a higher level of insurance, a higher level of responsibility. Think about it as a travel agent is a go-between between clients and tour operators. Okay. And one of the big things when I started my company was I wanted to make sure that we were equitable to our clients, right? Because here's the thing is as a travel agent, let's say for example, you told me you want to go to Peru. That's why I put the slide up, right?
Yep.
So if you say to a travel agent, I want to go to Peru, and then you give them the laundry list, of things that are important to you, right? I want to do this, I want to see that, I want to, et cetera, right? Your assumption is that the travel agent works for you. Okay. They do not. What they're going to do is they're going to take this information and they're going to go to a few tour operators. And let's just say there's two of them that provide quotes. Okay. A gives you a quote that is 100% what the client wants, but pays the travel agent a 10% commission. And tour company two pays and 12% commission and gives you like 80% of what you want. And what I really hated in this industry was what's more than likely going to happen is you, as the client, will never hear about the offer that gives you 100% of what you want because it just doesn't pay as much. And that travel agent is going to take whatever they can get from where they're getting paid, which is not you, right? So I structured my company as a tour operator because we wanted to be able to deliver what the client wants first and foremost above everything. And my assumption is if I give you, Thomas, 100% of the Peru experience that you're expecting, whether you saved 500 bucks or spent 500 bucks more, you don't care because you had the vacation you wanted to have. The experience was fully what you expected. And so I sort of divorced myself right then from what does it cost and started looking at like what is the experience like for the customers. And we have framed everything on that principle.
Wow,
And
thanks for breaking that down because I was pretty curious. And I've done some trips to Costa Rica and I hired a buddy of mine who's a travel agent and said, "Here's my budget, here's what we're looking for." And then they kind of formulate the tickets, the hotel and the
yeah,
all
they
that
can
stuff,
do a
right?
lot of that. So like if you're talking about like a simple booking, a
Right.
hotel,
You're
a
going
flight,
above and beyond for this amazing experience and they're curating this specifically to this adventure that you're looking for. Does that sound right?
Well, I think a lot of people would look at it and be like, what is the real difference, right? And so like a travel agent will easily book you a hotel, they'll book you a flight, they may rent you a car. Um, that might be most of the extent of it. They might get you a guide, okay? But if they're going to get you a guide, more than likely it's going to be from a public place that's available on the internet to everybody, okay? So it's not, and I'm not going to talk badly about anybody. There's a lot of great guides in those services. But if you got to think about like how many people are qualified and hired to be guides, and then think about the cream of the crop, the best of the best, right? If you want to rent one of the most ridiculous houses on the planet, you actually should not go to our Airbnb or VRBO. You're not going to find it. It's not available there, right? And that's kind of the same thing. Our guides have like we've had clients come back and they're like, yeah, our guide last week was giving Oprah a tour or Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about the cream of the crop, like the best of the best, right? Access you can't have. So that's the first and foremost thing, right? How are we going to craft that experience? We have a private car pick you up at your house and take you to the airport. We have a private car to take you from everywhere else that you're going to be with your luggage. We take care of the hotels, but we don't just book you a hotel. That's clicking buttons on a mouse. That's easy. Anybody can do that. We're going to send the hotel your full list of preferences. What temperature you'd like your room when you walk into it. Like, what kinds of pillows do you like? Do you like feather? Do you like foam? Do you like both? These types of things, right? So we're going to marry all of your tastes to all of the things that are available, and then basically provide a seamless experience that if I gave you the information of your trip 1 hour before you leave, you'll still have an amazing time, need to worry about absolutely nothing, and you can come home having had a real vacation. Because for me, a vacation is not a place to go. Okay. It is a set time where you can basically go into a new place mentally, physically, and otherwise with your most cherished loved ones, to reset yourself and be more prepared for the world after.
Wow. Yeah, no, thank you for laying that out. And it makes a lot of sense. So obviously you're on this upper ethridge of the travel industry.
For
What
sure.
what I have so many questions to dive into here. What type of clientele do you typically work with? Is this a something that, a regular Joe Blow and his wife are hiring you to do? Or is this something where it's another level up? You mentioned some of these guys working with Oprah and Justin
Right.
Bieber. So obviously you're 12 years doing this, 14 years doing this. You've made a lot of really great relationships, whereas some of these guys just clicking stuff just aren't going to have access to.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit more about your clientele, why you chose this particular model.
So I chose this model because again, I think experience over everything, right? To be honest, I couldn't care less about money. Money to me is something they make more of it every day, right? So, it's a never-ending supply. There's going to be some coming in, there's going to be some going out all the time, right? What I really care about is the experiences because these lead to what I think is probably the most important thing that has been through humanity is telling stories, right? It's being able to share an experience with somebody else in a way that brings us together. And so I think that's kind of the pinnacle of what can be with travel. Now that being said, what kinds of clients do we have? It's a great question because obviously, Oprah is not a client, right? But who is, right? And so what I would say is this is, if you're an experience above money person, we're a perfect fit. Okay. If you're going to shave every penny, unfortunately, we're not a good fit. But to give you more of a concrete example, On average, most of our tours are around 750 to $1,000 per person per day. Okay. So if you're thinking about two people for 10 days, we're generally speaking going to be around 15,000 to $20,000 and up. Okay. So most of our tours for two or three or four people are going to be between like 20 and $60,000 plus flights. Okay. Now that's kind of a base. We can go up almost infinitely on that, but we can't really go down from that. Okay. We are working on that. So we're hoping to be able to have a new product that's about half of that cost for two people. But currently, that's what we have. So we have two products currently. We have our standard tours and we have our platinum tours. And the platinum tours are usually about 2,000 plus per person per day. And the difference is that on the standard tours, we're going to give you a great experience. On the platinum tours, we're going to go from 4-star hotels to 5-star suites and junior suites. We're going to be able to add things like, for example, we could shut down a museum and you could have a private dinner inside of it. That's a
I've heard
totally,
people doing some really cool stuff like that.
yeah.
Like
So, I
even
mean, if you
getting
think
into the
about it, like anybody can go to the museum, but not everybody is going to have that experience. And that's
right.
kind of the difference is we're happy to cater to both because either one is fine. Again, it's not about how much money you spend, it's about the experience that you have.
Yep.
And you know what? I don't always talk about this, but I'm going to because Thomas, I think this is probably one of the most important things is that I think we as humans, we as people, we get trained on how we purchase things, right? For example, if you need a new car and you're looking at two 2025, Hondas or whatever, right? And they both have the same exact, packages. Everything about them is the same. We're trained to look at like, okay, which one's the less expensive, right? Like, what's the better deal we can get, right? That's how we buy things. If I want a white t-shirt and one of them is 20 bucks and one of them is 100 bucks, I'm probably going to buy the $20 one, most likely, right? Assuming they look, the same, right? Uh, Here's the thing. I think travel is completely different. It's the one product that defies all of those trainings that we get. And the reason is because what is the least expensive vacation you could possibly take? Answer, no vacation at all. Sit at home and it's practically free, right? So at the moment that we decide to take a vacation, what I think happens is the value exchange changes. It's now no longer about money, it's about experience. And, it's objectively cheaper to stay at the Motel 8, but is the experience good? No. I believe that most people will not vacation at a level below where they live. So, what we wanted to do is we wanted to create an experience that matches or exceeds where people generally live, while also making sure that all of those happen. And when that happens, it's not as much about the money. Now, that being said, I have never met anybody, including billionaires, who don't have some budget, right? They have some idea of what they want to spend. And we work with that all the time.
That's awesome. Just hearing you, it just gets my mind going with all these different things and ways that, we could potentially put something together and like, man, this sounds like really like you said, it's the experience. Especially millennials, they're more about experiences these days than owning a house and things of
Yeah,
that nature. I think humans, especially for myself, I'm 45 years old. I love experiences. I value those more than a lot of tangible things, right?
sure.
So I'm really excited. And folks, if you want to learn more, of course, we're gonna get Shane's info to you and learn a little bit more about Lugos travel. On the show, as I mentioned, we talk about everything that got you here, your journey, 14 years in. Obviously, you started this thing like any business, it takes time and there's learning curves. But then something crazy happens that we all experience. It was called COVID, pandemic, global pandemic, right? That I'm sure really just pulled the rug out from you. I'm very curious, what happened to your business, to you, your family in that time? What did you guys do to keep things going? I'm really curious about your journey in that aspect.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. It was not the funnest time for sure.
Right.
But basically, what it meant was 15 months of zero business. I'm very thankful and very grateful of the various programs the U.S. government released that basically allowed us to continue to be a business in that time. And the underscore was it was the biggest blessing that could have possibly happened to us. Um, because I'm not a person who likes to just sit around and not do anything, right? And so what I ended up really doing was really thinking about the process of purchasing travel. And nobody really thinks about this, right? We all think about like, my background, right? Like the cool, like Instagram worthy picture, right? Like that's the goal. And I think that's what most people want, right? But if you really break it down, what does that look like to get this? What does it take to get here? And because I'm all the time working in this, I'm a little bit more familiar than most. And so what has happened in the last 60 plus years, really nothing has changed in the way that people purchase travel. Okay. Which everybody who's done this is going to relate to this story like a billion percent. Okay. The process, let's face it, it sucks, right? It's stressful, it takes time. And you have three kids, you have your wife, you said you're homeschooling. I don't even have to ask you this, but like I'm guessing at the best case scenario, you and your wife get your first real one-on-one conversation about what? 9 p.m.? Is that
No,
8:30,
no, no,
9?
we actually we live in a three-story house. I work and have the office upstairs. We have the homeschool room. And so we eat together. I come down, see them, say what's
A
up,
little different.
a little different, but
But I
real
mean, like, if
conversation.
you and your wife were like going to plan a vacation and you needed an hour to know where you're going to go,
Not planning dinner, all that stuff.
nothing
Then
else. Like, you're not taking the kids to,
yeah, it would
gymnastics
be
or whatever.
later.
You know what I mean? Like
It would be
that
later.
first minute that you and your wife really have a chance to break down what's going on, not just have a meal and shit. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So,
It would be
I,
later. Kids, when the kids go down, that's when we can
right.
have some a little bit more focused time.
And that's the thing, right? And
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? That is the end of day energy that you're going to bring into planning the vacation that's going to be a memory for you, your family, and your kids for the rest of your lives.
You're already drained.
You're
Sounds
drained,
like
aren't you?
you're alluding to the fact of doing these types of planning when in the mornings where it's fresh and everything's exciting and
That would be amazing, right? But
yeah.
you got to do this and you got to go here and you got a meeting and all these things, right? So this is the problem, right? It is when do we as people have the time, effort, and energy to go into this process, right? So, what I'm addressing right now is that before we've even begun the process, the family's stress is already high, okay? And now let's get into the actual process of buying travel. You're going to have a web form that's going to lead to a phone call. That phone call is usually about a half an hour to an hour that both you and your wife need to be present for. I'm sure that's probably already difficult to make happen. And then what's going to happen at every company in the world is it's going to be 3 to 5 business days before you get one proposal. Okay. So you've now like finally mustered up the energy and time to call an agent and get all this process started. And next week is when the earliest you'll be able to talk about it. And so if you make a single change, which by the way, you will, to the plan, it's usually another 3 to 5 days to get an update. And what the reality of this situation, Thomas, is that it's 2.5 to 3 weeks of your time from start to finish before you've actually got a vacation planned. Okay? Simple as that. It doesn't matter where you go, doesn't matter how long the vacation is, it's 2.5 to 3 weeks. And I thought that that sucked. So during COVID, I was just like, look, in a world where Amazon is going to deliver the stuff I bought in 2 hours or 2 days, who is going back to shop in 1999 Macy's and wait 2.5, 3 weeks for shipping to get your stuff there? You know what I mean? Who's going to do that? Literally nobody, right? So what I wanted to do during COVID is I wanted to make the process of buying a vacation so easy that it was a vacation from planning a vacation. And what we came up with was an entirely new process that allows our clients to get 100% of the information that they need in about 5 minutes. And what we've really done with this entire process is this year we set a global record of taking a client that had never heard of us to a completely planned trip in 47 minutes. No other company on the planet can come even close to that, right? And so now what I realized was that we as people with, a family and jobs and all these things, we already have all the stress we want, right? And so planning a vacation is like this extra stress that nobody wants and nobody needs. And so psychologically, what really happens inside the people is we all want to hit the easy button, right? Who doesn't love that Staples easy button? And so what that looks like is three different things, okay? We're either going to go on a cruise, we're going to go to an all-inclusive vacation, or we're going to go somewhere we've already been before. All three of those are very easy and quick to plan, but all three of them are giving something up, right? Like where you're not going to get this Machu Picchu experience if you take that track. It's just not going to happen, right? And so what I wanted to do was make sure that people still get the experiences that enrich their lives and create those better stories, but without all of the problems that it takes to book them. And that's basically what COVID gave us as a gift, was the time to be able to really reinvent the entire way that people purchase travel so that we could bring things into the modern world.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when you have time, the creativity and the improvements that can be made? We're
Yeah.
always going, just, staying in that hamster wheel, going, and we're so focused, we don't see other things going on, or we don't look at better ways and efficiencies,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. So it sounds like you've really taken that, what would have been a really horrible from the outside, situation for not only just individuals, but for the planet, and really turned around. And now you have a process in your business that allows your clients to have a way better experience right out the gate. Man, that's amazing. And that's kind of where I wanted to segue, because I was curious, in this whole process. You said you from someone finding about you to planning and having basically a trip planned 47 minutes, incredible. How are you leveraging technology, AI, to create, these efficiencies inside your business?
Now, I love that question because that's a question we actually are getting a lot more these days, which is, oh, you're just using AI. No, actually, we don't use any AI on any of the planning of any of our tours. All of that is done with personal connections. We have industry knowledge, and we have access to things that people who book themselves cannot have access to. These are things that are not publicly available. Okay.
Sure. That's where those
So we
relationships come into play.
only relationships, right? We're
Okay.
talking about people who have had their family farm for hundreds of years. They're not putting their stuff up on like public sites, but
Right.
for a very select few, we can create an entire experience around that if that fits. Okay. So that's one thing. The second thing is, though, how do we leverage AI? Because to be honest, we do leverage it, just not in that way. So, where we really like, and I'm so proud of my team, and I'm so grateful to have just an amazing team behind me to make this all possible, but it's in some of the less fun things, like marketing and newsletters and things like that. Being able to instantaneously search what are the top news stories and then be able to craft a response to what's going on and inform our people. We're not having AI write the whole thing for us, but it does help us in the research and development of the copywriting. If I had to write the blog post, oh, I mean, I'm not that guy.
Well,
I'm
that's
good at,
one thing that ChatGPT is definitely helping people with and saving a lot of time.
yeah,
Why not? That's what innovation technology has done since the beginning of man. And now we're just getting smarter with it. And so,
yeah.
as you can imagine, 5, 10, 20 years from now, I mean, I don't even know the way it's expanding exponentially is pretty wild. So you're at least using it in some form of fashion, but not
Yeah.
really to plan these trips because that takes a little bit more curated touch in the relationships, which make, a lot of sense. You
Well, I'm going
mentioned
to
your,
touch on that a little bit because
yeah,
I think we've had a lot of clients that are like, oh, I could plan this with AI. Yes, you absolutely can. Like, I'm not going to tell you you can't, right? It will give you some results. But
sure.
there have definitely been instances, not our clients, but where there have been instances where people showed up at something that the AI hallucinated even existing, right?
Yep.
So they're on their
It happens.
vacation and they've spent all this time, effort, and energy to be at this thing
Mm,
that truthfully doesn't exist. That's one
wow.
thing. But
Yep.
really the biggest thing that I want to point out to people is and if money and budget is the reason you're doing this, God love you, you should use any and all tools that you have, okay? But it's not the same. And the way that it's not the same is we provide 24/7 support for all of our clients throughout the entirety of their trip, which means that if something goes wrong, and I'll shortcut this for you, with international travel, there's almost always something that goes a little wonky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When that happens, AI is not going to help you fix it. They're not going to know that it's happening. They're not going to be able to get it. So, what does this really look like in practical terms? Okay. Uh, we've had clients. So, we do this. This is the normal thing that we do all the time, right? Client is at a hotel in city one and is going to go to city two, right? So we'll have a private car pick you up, take you to the train station. Train goes to city two. We'll have a car pick you up and take you to the hotel, right? Simple, direct, very easy, right? Well, in Europe, train strikes happen all the time. Okay, all the time. And so at 2 a.m., we've gotten the notification that there's a train strike the next day, right? So client is there, right? They're sleeping. They don't even know that there's a problem. So if AI planned your trip, what's going to happen is you're going to show up at the train station, and that's when you're going to find out you don't have a train. You're also going to find out that the hotel that you just checked out of was fully booked for that night, so you can't check back in there.
Right.
And you're also going to find out that the hotel in City 2 that you have booked and not going to be at is going to charge you for that night. And if you were there for 2 or 3 nights, they're also going to cancel the rest of your nights. So now you don't have a hotel in City 2. Basically, what happens at 8 a.m., that couple who planned with AI is going to wake up and find out that their vacation just took a massive turn and that they now need to stop their vacation and spend time, effort, and energy to fix all of these problems before things can move back on into a relaxed state, right? And what happens in a vacation is if you keep going from stress to no stress, stress to no stress, did you have a good time? No.
No,
Okay.
you paid all this
So
money to not have a good time. And
what did AI do for you? Well, it told you that Hotel A and Hotel B existed and let you book them, but that's it. Okay. The reality is the difference of booking with us is we're going to have the private car pick you up at 8 a.m. just like you expected. But it's at that moment that you will be informed that there's a train strike and that we've already cleared the driver to take you to the next city, and because it's far, we're also going to schedule you a stop with a lunch at a place on the way. So, yes, it'll take a little while longer, but your vacation is not interrupted one iota. As a matter of fact, you'll end up getting an extra experience and you didn't have to do anything or know anything. So, there's a big difference with like what will currently happen with AI versus what will happen with a professional.
absolutely. I mean, that just goes to show that AI can be useful in many places and still, not as useful. And,
Yeah,
we're naturally lazy. I like to call myself optimistically lazy.
I like that.
Um, became an entrepreneur because I was lazy. I didn't want to work for someone else and be told what to do. And then here I am working more than I would have, but I work for my dream and it's okay now. 20
Yep.
plus years. It's just built now and it is what it is. Very, very, very impressive, Shane. I love what you're doing. I definitely will be reaching out to you guys. It makes sense to spend a little bit extra money to have that peace of mind because at the end of the day, if you're trying to cut corners and you get out there and just shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
man, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass saying, "I wish I would have paid a little more and had that peace of mind," right?
You know
That's
what's
amazing.
funny is everybody that I've ever met has a hard time spending the money up front, but when you're on your vacation, you'll spend anything. Okay. So
To get it back on track or
to get
just
it back on track or like
just for
here's an example
expenditures?
I use a lot. Are you is there any chance you're a scuba diver?
No,
Have you ever scuba dived?
I have.
Okay. This will work just fine. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just say you are a fan of scuba diving and you have paid me to go to somewhere cool, Guam, Tahiti, Maldives, whatever, right? Perfect place to go scuba diving. Okay. Now, here's how most people will do this. If they go to that place, they will probably say, I like to scuba dive. I'll figure it out when I get there, right? Most people will do that. And then what happens in practical, real terms is they're walking around and they see a little chalkboard sign outside of a scuba dive shop. And it says, hey, come on in and buy a dive. And you're like, sweet. And you go into that shop and you buy a dive. That's it, the end of the story, right? But what is the real practical example in there? Well, scuba diving is a dangerous sport. You actually can die. So the safety rating of the equipment and the instructors and everything is actually practically pretty important. That's one. Two, you did no research. You have no idea what you just bought. Did you just buy the cheapest, shortest boat ride that cost the least amount of gas to go to the smallest nearby reef? Or did you go to the really cool spot that you would want to see if you were in that particular area? Like those are
Right.
two different experiences, even though it's the same exact thing. So
Sure.
when you hire us and you tell us, I like to scuba dive, not only am I going to factor that in, but when I factor that in, and I mean my whole company, we're going to look at all of the available scuba dive companies in that particular place. We're going to rate their actual safety ratings. We're going to look at their insurances. We're going to look at a lot of different safety, and we're going to start asking questions like, where do you go? What are they going to see? How long is it? What is the experience like? All of these things that you would want to know if you were going to be doing this. And we factor that in. So we're going to say, hey, listen, Thomas, you're going to Tahiti. We think you should scuba dive because A, it's a great place, and because B, you like scuba diving. And if you're going to do it, this is the place, this is the company, and this is the cost. If you pay for it up front, it's done, it's finished, right? The difference is now we've been able to be very choosy about the type of experience you're going to have and make sure that it's very good. Whereas the difference was when you're walking by the sign, you basically ceased all thought processes of what is important.
Mhm.
And no matter what it cost, okay, that chalkboard sign is what sold you. We have no idea if that was a good deal or a bad deal. And that's the thing is when you're on vacation and you've had no plan, you will spend any amount of money to do something that you like to do when you just happen to see it, as opposed to thinking about it ahead of time and saying, I like this. Let's make a plan to do it in this spot, but not just make a plan. Let's make sure that the experience is the best that it can possibly be. And we offload that thought process for our client while also alleviating the second and third order thoughts that need to happen. Does that make sense?
No, I think it's a perfect analogy to how you're treating customers and kind of once again the practical steps that are being taken when you're on vacation, and so it's you got some people out here wanting to once again potentially cut corners, but then they're going to go spend money on stuff that they don't really know instead of just staying in the lane that was curated for you based on that experience that you dreamed of. So now that
Yeah.
makes sense. 14 years, once again, business owner. You've seen it all, ups and downs, obviously. I'm really curious because it seems like you spend a lot of time and energy really figuring these things out for your clients, a lot of research, both, internationally, domestically, on the boots, on the ground at these spots and really formulating these tight relationships. How do you protect your energy as both a business leader and a creative planner?
Ooh, what a great question. Protecting my energy. So earlier this year, so I'm 48 years old, and earlier this year, I was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's. And so I've been actually giving a lot of thought to protecting my energy, not just because of that, but in addition to. And for me, it's about making sure that I'm being good to my body, that I'm doing exercise. But like you, I have an 11-year-old son, and I need to be able to show up for him and do these things. So I think really as a business owner, probably the advice that I've given a lot of people who started their own business is protecting their energy. That's probably actually the number one thing that I would give advice on to anybody who's starting a business is understand at a very keen level that your business will reward you in ways you never thought possible, right? Every little action that you do or take is going to produce a positive result over time. And that can be very addicting. And because you're what I think a lot of business owners get into is a series of 90-day sprints. Okay. So we set these little goals like for 90 days. And then when we hit or don't hit those, we're now refocused to start new goals and do those. And it's very, very positively reinforcing to constantly be in this loop. But where does that get you, really? And what I think about is there are no U-Hauls behind a hearse. So, what do we really have? We have the time and the memories that we've shared with others because nobody has ever been on their deathbed and wished they spent more time at work. What they wish for is that they spent more time with their relationships that they cared about. And so, as a business owner, it's really important to set aside specific times where you're definitely not going to work, even though you will have a lot of work to do. And even if you do that work, it will be very positively reinforcing to your psyche, but you need to not do that and create space for something else. Because if you don't, what will happen in 10, 15, 20 years is you'll just have worked yourself to death. And now you'll have absolutely nor the time. Well, you probably won't have the physicality that you need to be able to travel. But what you definitely won't have is the mentality that you are allowed to take time off. And if you don't allow yourself that thought, man, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
have so
powerful.
many stories. I wrote a book earlier this year, right after my diagnosis, because there's really a lot of things that I was thinking about for a number of years that I just didn't really know how to focus it in on until I was diagnosed. And then I felt like everything just sort of, tunnel visioned. It was like, man, clarity. It was crazy. And here's the thing is it is so very easy for us to get into these cycles where we care about the mortgage more than we do about the people, right? And it's really just like this tumbleweed of things. um I have clients that have spent their entire lives wanting to travel, and they were going to wait until retirement, right? The old someday excuse. I'll do that someday, right? And I love saying this because someday is a tacit admission that the answer is no. I'm not going to do it. Okay. Someday doesn't exist. It's on no calendars.
Procrastination,
It's
right?
nothing. Okay. Someday is no. Okay.
Yeah.
And so here's what happened is, and this is just one example of many. The couple had spent their whole lives working, waiting to retire and doing all these cool travels. The wife retired 2.5 months before the husband. So for 2.5 months, her and I had been working on planning the next 3 years worth of vacations. We had a great plan. We had everything set up. The husband finally retired. 2 weeks later, he's diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Bam. Nobody's traveling anywhere ever. Okay. And here's the thing is in life, we go from our go-go years to our slow-go years to our no-go years. And what I want everybody to realize is that some people will go from their go-go to their no-go years in as little as one day.
Mm.
So keep this in mind when you have the energy or the time, doesn't matter how much money you have, take it immediately and do those things that you want to do because someday you may not be able to do those things. And at that point, the game's over.
Super powerful. And, I'm definitely be lifting you up in my prayers and keeping you
Thank you.
positive. I know when you hear these ailments, like you said, you get tunnel vision. I can only imagine what you or your family is going through. I know there's a lot of amazing things happening. I believe in the human spirit in healing. So I wish that upon you, brother.
Thank you.
What would be some advice then? Because that's very powerful. I want to segue there. I know we only have 10, 15 more minutes, so I want to just dive in real quick there. What would be some advice for someone who just keeps these excuses up? You laid it all out. You don't want to be on your deathbed wishing you'd done these things, have any gas in the tank, right? You want to be able to
Yeah,
say, I did it all. What would be some advice? Because saving, investing alone, and especially in our economy, most people don't travel because it's just they're trying to stay afloat, right? That's just a reality.
yeah,
And so, what would you say, even for people who maybe can't afford something like the exclusive luxury experience you give? What would you say to them? Is there any plan or way that they can start today and then
sure.
kind of move forward and hopefully, throw some experiences under their belt?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing is it can be really easy to get caught up, especially because I deal with luxury travelers. Obviously, not a company that is set up to take care of everybody's travels. Okay. So that to be clear. But but personally, I think everybody can do something. Like even if you're just getting by It could be as easy as an afternoon at, maybe your local museum is going to have a free day, right? Go for just an afternoon, right?
Mm,
Go on a camping trip. Um, you know, if you have, a couple, it may be a couple, even 100, couple thousand points on your credit card, use it for like a 2 night, somewhere, 2, 3 hours away from your house. There is no excuse why we can't take some time with
yeah.
the people that we love and take ourselves out of work mode. And I'll tell you this because there's a plethora of science about this. If you want to use your AI to research, this is a fantastic way to do this, is look at the benefits of travel or basically time off from your work. The body of evidence is overwhelming, right?
Well, it
Being
helps with a lot
able
of things, right? The longevity, less stress, less all these bad chemicals rolling through, stress,
better ideas for
anxiety,
your business.
clear out. Yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's 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 so much evidence, right? Just taking yourself out of this constant work mode a little bit produces better relationships, better happiness,
Hmm.
better ideas at your actual work. Like there's so many things. So, if you can't do much, start small, right? But don't not do it. I think that's probably the biggest thing is you'll never get the time back. And what I really focus on is, we started earlier today. I told you there's more money printed every day, but there's zero extra time.
Yep.
Okay. And here's the thing is and I know several people that are multi millionaires, but their health not so good. They would trade 100% of their money to have their health and their time back. And so not taking these things for granted when you have them is take that time,
Mm,
work on yourself,
yep.
do these things because now is the best time. Yesterday was probably the best time. Now is the second best time. Tomorrow is terrible, right? Like these things need to be addressed because, we're in this consumeristic society that keeps us like on this treadmill. And truthfully, Thomas, I really think that in the coming 5, 10, 15 years with AI and robotics, the changes are going to be stark. And I think that a lot of people who have had, careers and jobs are going to have those taken away from them. And they're going to have a lot more time and they're not necessarily going to know what to do with it. They don't know who they are without that job or that thing. And that's what I really want people to focus on is know thyself, right? Understand what makes you tick because it's probably not your job, right? It's probably something bigger than that, that your job emulates a portion of, right?
Right.
And so I really want people to, take some time. I mean, dude, you have 3 young kids, right? Like, and you're homeschooling them. So you're so blessed to be able to spend a lot of time with them. But I'm sure that it's probably challenging for you to spend one-on-one time with any one of them, right? Between again, your work, your wife, your schedule, and all these things, right? But taking that is going to make a tacit difference, not just in your life, but in theirs. And I think just understanding how these things interplay with all of us is
It's
just the
huge.
absolute best in making sure that we have a full life and a sound mind.
I mean, that's the end of it. We're all here having this human experience, and yet we fall into this system that is from the minute you're born to you die to work for the man, money, got to survive.
Yep.
And I just don't believe that that's what we're here for. This human experience, this consciousness, and I like you were saying about my kids. I even though I work from home, I see them and that's great. And I know what's being taught to them. I don't trust these schools these days, just point blank. That's why we made the choice to do that.
Yeah.
But we did, we have what we call daddy dates because it is so hard. I each one of them, we go in rotation where they spend, an hour or two with us, maybe go in a park or a movie, but just one-on-one time. And then we're always together, as a family, but having that one-on-one time has been a real pivotal point for me. I feel like I'm actually being a part of their life, and they feel like I'm connected because usually when you have that many children, the middle kid might think the younger is getting the more attention. The older one's like, man, I'm not getting the attention I was. And so having
Yep.
that balance, putting something in your life, I think maybe I heard some hints of you reading James Cleary's book, Atomic
Yeah.
Habits. Have you? Well, he
I haven't.
mentions very small atomic changes to get rid of bad habits, good habits. But
Yeah.
I teach this too with my company because I see people all the time. They want to be a better business person. They want to be a better operator. But they go to these seminars, webinars I teach, these lunch and learns. They spend the time and energy. They get there, and then they go home and they don't implement anything. They don't put anything in change. And guess what? They have the same results. They're in the
Yeah.
same rut, and they never grow. And especially with
Yeah.
AI right now, it's going to significantly change the landscape. And if they're not interjecting it in some way to save that time, I mean, I tell this is the biggest part of AI, at least for my company and how we help our clients, is we're getting them back 10 to 15 hours a week because the AI is doing all those low level tasks that were
Right.
eating up their
Right.
productivity. So I think using AI to get that time back is been amazing. And that is my biggest selling point on that. What would you do with that extra time? Right? You can do things that
And
you really focus on and that really mean a lot to you. Business development, higher level negotiatings, things of that nature.
I'll add on to that. Yes, if we actually as people really think of the last 100 years, every major invention has been to save time, right?
Right.
Vacuum cleaners,
The
irons,
industrial
washing
industry.
machines, dishwashers, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
bread makers, like
It's because we're
almost
lazy, intuitively
everything.
lazy humans. We
But
want
here's
it
the thing,
better.
Thomas. Here's the thing, Thomas. The average American, the average person 200 years ago slept 11 hours a day. Okay. The average person only worked was it 151 or 161 days a year. Okay. Um,
That's interesting. You would think it's the opposite.
right. And here's the thing is we have all this extra time, but we have the wrong priorities. We're putting that time back into our business. And it's this again, like it's rewarding, right? You're like, oh, I put an extra, I used AI, I offloaded my newsletters. Great. I just saved 3 hours that week. What do I do with that 3 hours is the most important question because now if I put all three of those hours back into my business, superb. Maybe I incrementally increase and everything's great, right? That's
Hmm.
self-rewarding, and then you do it again and again. But if you never take a portion of that time and set it aside for you, yourself, your family, like, or whatever, what was the point? You know,
Yeah.
the thing, I think the thing that like drives me absolutely nuts is there is absolutely no end to work. Like I could sit here at my desk right here infinite hours. I can consistently come up with more things to do, right? There's never ending stuff, right?
Yep.
And so it's having the mental fortitude to say, no, this is enough. I'm done, right? I mean, after we hang up, I'm done, not just for today, I'm done for tomorrow, I'm done for the next day after that. January 2nd is my next day, right? I'm forcing myself to say no. I'm not going to take care of that
Mm.
stuff. Because quite honestly, I'm luxurious enough to say, hey, my clients that might need something, need it in like 3 or 4 or 5 months. So it's not an emergency for me to handle that right now. But on the other end of the spectrum, if I didn't take that time and do something for myself, in 2 months when I'm in the thick of my busy season and I'm busy as hell and my kid wants my attention and my wife wants to go do this, I've put nothing in the piggy bank. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to take the time when I can to do the things that I can do, and not just keep filling my work bucket.
Man, that's powerful. I think we have a summary, if I would say, of this whole conversation really is just to understand that life is this beautiful gift that we've been given, and to step outside of your day-to-day routine, to give yourself some breathing room, give your family the time they need to connect and bond and build those relationships, and reduce some stress, and look at life from a different perspective, a different culture, different foods, different place and time, and really just, as the Chinese say, I heard this proverb says, "Be where your feet are."
I like
Just
that.
being in the moment for once, not thinking of the past, which is figment of our imagination. Don't think about the future, which is a figment of your imagination. Be in the now and start planning today on how you can escape this craziness, and give yourself some breathing room.
Thank you for that, Thomas. That was beautiful. Nice summary.
And I'm just thrilled. I think just talking to you, like, it's really me. I've been thinking in my head, I'm like, man, now I really gonna put some time into thinking how I can even start setting aside. And I really like how I didn't know what you were going to say about my question regarding what can someone do to start. And like you said, just finding a museum where it's free. Like, you don't have to go crazy, but to see new things, experience something, could be in your backyard.
Yeah.
It could be a park down the road, but just
Yeah.
getting out of those normal environments and changing it up. That's where the creativity lives, and where you can hopefully thrive. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We have just a few more minutes here. I have every guest that comes on the last part.
All right.
We kind of have some fun. It's our lightning round. I ask you one question, you answer it, and we just roll with it. I'm just amazed, and so grateful to have you on. All right, you ready?
Go.
All right. What's one tool that you can't live without?
Ah, shit. These days it's my reading glasses, but I'm not going to say anything that thing. Um, hmm,
It's a
flexible
lightning round,
thinking.
Shane.
Flexible
Lightning round.
thinking. There you go.
Wow.
That's my answer.
Ne-
Flexible
ne-
thinking.
Never had anyone use an intellectual tool. What's the favorite part of your job?
Ooh, surprising people. I love that I can sometimes predict to the minute when my client is going to be smiling so much that they're probably going to text me and be like, "This is fucking awesome." I love that. And I plan that for months in advance. And I'm like, 5:15 today, that's what's going to happen. And, 5:15, 5:16, boom,
Send
you
me the
get that text.
photo.
Yes. I don't even need
That's
the photo.
amazing.
You know what? One of my favorite things. Have you ever seen the movie Go?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an older one. It's like a way older one, right? It's about raving and stuff like that. What I really love about that movie was the promoter. He speaks about this moment. He's like, as the promoter, you have to go through all this crap to put together this party, right? He's like, what my favorite part is at the end of the night, he's like, there'll always be that one person that looks at you and gives you the nod, right? It's just like that
Right.
tacit understanding between the two of you that like your work was appreciated in the way that you expected it to be appreciated. That's everything for me. I couldn't care less about I mean, I love 5-star reviews. I love the pictures. All of that is great, but I'm in it for the nod.
I know that feeling. I was a professional musician for 12 years, and I toured the
Awesome.
country in a reggae rock band,
No
and
way.
seeing the faces when you're playing, seeing
That's so
children, people
cool.
dancing. I put on
Yeah.
over 500 events in my time, and to look back and just be like, I did something where these people will remember that for life. And to this day, I still have people. I used to throw a lot of home parties when I first got into the industry,
Yeah.
and people to this day, 30, 40 years old, be like, I still remember that party. And so I know that feeling. All right, what is the least favorite part of your job?
I deal with multiple time zones, languages, cultures. Man, like every now and then something doesn't go right. I don't love that. Every now and then, we'll pay somebody and that record doesn't get, down the line to the person. I hate when the experience for our clients it doesn't live up to the promise. We do everything that we can, but I'll be very frank, it would be impossible to have been in business this long and not have had some mistakes,
But
but
you can't be in business this long and not give people, the experience
yeah.
overall, right?
Well, I'm very proud that 14 years in, we have never, not once, had less than a 5-star review.
It's amazing.
But I'm going to be honest and say that some people had a less than a 5-star experience. They just didn't write about it. And I'm going to call myself out about it. That's what I hate the most.
Yeah.
But it's that drive that allows me to redouble my efforts for the future and to do it better.
Well, you take pride in what you do, and your goal is to make people happy. So it makes sense that if it's not all there and 500 events in, guess what? No matter how good I planned everything, there's always something. And
Always.
so, as a planner myself, just more in the entertainment, I know that feeling. After a while, I just said, I'm not gonna, put so much weight on my shoulder. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're people happy. It is what it
Yeah.
is. What's one place you'd like to travel that you haven't been yet?
There's a few. China. I have not been to China, and I'd like to spend probably at least 3 weeks. Um, I want to go to Egypt. I don't. An African safari. Those would be my top three places that I haven't done or been to. I've been very fortunate to be a lot of cool places though, so that's nice.
I was going to say 14 years. I was ready for that question, and I asked it specifically because I'm like, where's this guy not been?
Yeah.
You've already, before you even got in the business, traveled around the world, so that's amazing. All right, final one. Uh, what's one book, podcast, or a resource that you would suggest to our audience?
It would be totally self-serving to recommend my own book.
Please do. You mentioned it. What is it called, and where can people find it?
It's called the 1840 rule. So it's 18/40 rule. It's on Amazon and everywhere else. But I'll recommend a different one. I actually just finished it, and it's a nerdy pick. Okay, it is not going to be something that everyone loves reading. But if you're in the mood to know what's going to be happening in the next 5 to 25 years, it's
Hmm.
a solid recommendation. Ray Kurzweil, have you ever heard of him?
I have not.
So Ray Kurzweil has basically been in the AI computing space since like the 1960s. He's been a VP at level at Google, and he's written multiple books. And essentially, what he's best at is being a technology prognosticator. So he's the Nostradamus of technology, if you will. He's very accurate over a multiple decade career. Okay, so very accurate. Um, and he wrote a book last year called The Singularity is Nearer, because the one he wrote 20 years ago called The Singularity is Near. Both books phenomenal, but essentially what he does is he breaks down where technology is leading and shows us where we are on a timeline of where things will be. And my philosophy has always told me that if you want to it's very easy to know where things are going to be in 10 years. It's a lot easier to know where you're going to be if you kind of know what's going on. So Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Nearer. If you want
Oh, that's great.
a
That
more
sounds like a
light
book,
read.
I'd love to read. Obviously, being in AI, you referred to what I think was the technological adaptation curve,
Yes.
showing where people are, where it's going. Now that you said his name, I did read a documentary or see a documentary actually where AI started in the 40s. Was
Yeah.
he the guy in the 60s? He built the first chatbot?
He
Was
was
that
he
him?
was in like the MIT labs with some of the earliest computing and
Yeah.
stuff like that. He's been in the game like a
And I'm
really
sure I've
long
ran into it, just the name
time.
didn't pop. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, man.
I'll tell you what I was surprised at was I had like so the book is maybe yay thick, right? And
Uh,
when I got to like this much left, I was like, oh, I'm so excited, I'm really into it. And the book ended, and I was like, wait, what? What's going on? It was like 120 pages of like notes, citations, like it's a
oh
lot.
wow.
It's a lot. It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot. But it shows us, I think what it shows us, if we can take it to be true, is that we as people have been thinking that technology is taking us on a linear path, right? What we've seen is computing power has gone up, technology has been going up, and things like that. His proposition is that because of AI, quantum computing, and some of the other technological boosts, that we're actually not on a linear curve, but we're on an exponential curve. And
Exponential for sure.
his thinking in the 2005 book was that right now we would be beginning the curve up. And so I think we're seeing that. And I'm going to dovetail that back into my own diagnosis. I find myself obviously a little upset that I have Parkinson's, but also incredibly grateful that I happened to have been born when I did at a time where it is conceivable that things that have never existed before, such as being able to manipulate our proteins and things, this could be solved in the next 5 to 10 years, where
Hmm.
Parkinson's, among many other things, are no longer an issue that we as humans need to deal with. So I find that, obviously I'm a little invested, but at the same time, I find it really interesting to see, how these trends have progressed over time and where they're going. And, obviously they're predictions. They may not be, fully correct. But, if they are, wow, what a wonderful time we live in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a product of the 80s, 81. So I had that life where I was a child and we rode our bikes everywhere and we were
Everywhere.
in nature and
Yep.
we jumped in creeks and we weren't worrying about all this stuff and our parents were working and they didn't know where we were. We were just
No.
supposed to be home when the sun was down and
Yep.
then came computers and
Yep.
look where we are. I have 3 kids, don't know what the future is like as far as all of that, but I try to keep them grounded in nature, try to always bring them to new experiences. We travel together, and it's just one of those things we don't know. And like you said, it is growing exponentially. Went down the rabbit hole. I'm sure that's a whole new podcast that we could talk on. But Shane, you have been super generous with your time and just showing those insights about your business, your personal life, and the ups and downs. And I just really am grateful for you. I appreciate that. I want to, our audience to know where can they connect with you if they just want to follow you, check your socials out, or maybe even be a client and have you book an amazing dream vacation for them.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And I want to thank you. You asked great questions, and I appreciate the follow up. You and your team have a great thing going. It's very, very well organized.
Thank you.
Anyone who wishes to follow me can find me at ShaneMahoney360.com. So ShaneMahoney360.com. My name is printed on the screen here, but if you're just listening in, it's Shane. Mahoney is like Mahoney 360.com. You can find all of my company, my personal socials, my book. You can find literally everything about me is there, and invite anybody to check it out. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'm happy to help. Even if you're not going to be a client, I'm happy to give advice on things because ultimately I really just want people to have better relationships, better lives, and that doesn't always mean that they're going to be clients. That's okay.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, you guys, you heard it here. Want to check out Shane Lugos Travel? I took a look at the website. They have amazing tours and packages. And like he said, they curate a top end, very niche experience for you. So go check them out. And if you got any value from this show, we would love for you to share, like, subscribe, and really just get this out. Stellar Minds, we're interviewing people, their journeys, and we hope you got some value out of it. If you're an entrepreneur and you have an amazing story that you'd like to share or just some value to add to our audience, you can reach me at Thomas at stellaraisolutions.com. And to find out more about our AI solutions, you can go to www.stellaraisolutions. God bless and have a stellar day.